Eskom is getting a new board. Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan confirmed this yesterday. The embattled utility is struggling to keep the lights on. In fact, living without electricity is gradually becoming the new norm for us. Now, will the new board be able to turn things around at the utility? Let's go to our reporter Heidi Giokos, who's following developments. She joins us now live. Heidi, what are analysts telling you about, this new board leaving? Is this a step in the right direction? We've changed leadership so much. Nothing has changed at Eskom.
Yes, exactly, Masako. I think that's the big concern here is we are now going to be seeing a new board that could possibly be implemented as early as next week. But I think the big question and the concern for most South Africans is whether or not this is actually going to solve the ongoing electricity crisis that we are facing in the country. We have been subjected to the worst stages of load shedding in the last couple of weeks, and do we really care about a new board? Is that going to be the solution to this energy crisis? But let's get perspective from independent analyst Kaya Sitole. Thank you so much for your time, Kaya. I know you're being load shed. It was very difficult to get a hold of you.
Ironic.
But let's speak about this announcement by DPE Minister Pravin Gordhan that there's going to be a new Eskom board because the term of the current board has expired. Is this going to be the solution to the energy crisis?
No, and I think it's quite important for us to sort of take a step back and remember where we are. So you remember at the beginning of 2018, what made up the current board was actually put together under duress because Cyril Ramaphosa had just emerged as a victor in Nasrec and he was heading off to Davos to lead the South African delegation. And what they then said to President Jacob Zuma was the fact that they were not going to leave for Davos until there was a new board at Eskom that would lend credibility to the idea that South Africa was fixing not only the corruption crisis but also the electricity generation crisis. So this board that was 15 members back then was put together under those particular conditions. The importance of that particular time frame is that at that point in time, Cyril Ramaphosa was still intimately involved in the deployment committee of the ANC, which as we now know is where things go to die or where things go to be revived. So because he had that ability to influence the deployment committee, it was easy for him to simply say, these are the 13 names that I want on this particular board, and we made it happen. Unfortunately, that board then has been decimated ever since 2018, and we're now left with just 7 of those members. And the key problem here is that obviously, if Ramaphosa himself had been aware that the board that he put together is no longer fully capacitated, the question is, why would you wait until now in order to say, oh, by the way, we're putting together a new board? So this announcement by the Department of Public Enterprises isn't the Department of Public Enterprises championing governance. It is them responding to the escalation in stage 6 load shedding that we saw last week and the questions that have been raised about how seriously government takes the issue of Eskom if they can't even be bothered to put together board members that are supposed to oversee that organization. So it's all too reactionary, unfortunately.
Reactionary and probably not going to solve the ongoing energy crisis that we face in this country. I want to ask you about speculation of who's going to be on this board, because we've already heard that Eskom is in desperate need of critical skills and engineers that can actually solve this ongoing problem that we face in the country when it comes to electricity. Who do you think would possibly, firstly, want to sit on the Eskom board, given the state of the power utility, but also who they could possibly be considering, given the influence that the ANC has in all of this?
It will be remarkable to find anyone who's willing to put their hands up and say, I want to join this particular board, because unfortunately, being on the Eskom board comes as a poison chalice. We do know that the board is supposed to exercise oversight over the executive operations and executive management. However, in light of where we are in South Africa, everyone who's affiliated with Eskom essentially gets to be on the firing line when we get to stage 6 load shedding, for example. So it'll be difficult to find people courageous enough to say, I actually want to put my hand up, but of course we do need those people. The secondary issue, of course, is that at the end of the day, Eskom is an operational entity first and foremost. So until we get some insights onto the skills deficit on the engineering and the operations side, it may not even matter who sits on the board, because all the board can do is to simply ratify the decisions that the executive management is able to put together. The fact that the CEO and the CFO and this chief operating officer have been there throughout simply means that at the end of the day, the board isn't the problem, because if Andre de Ruyter comes out to us and says, look, I've been recommending these particular executives to be hired in order for us to bolster our operating capacity, and this board has been blocking me, then we'd say the board is a problem. But if he hasn't been putting that together, matter. It doesn't matter whether they've got 7 members or 15 members of the board. Until Eskom is able to do its job, to conduct its operations in a manner that is required to run the country's electricity infrastructure, the board is a secondary fixation.
I've run out of time, but I have to ask you one last question. We're very good at blaming and playing the blame game in this country. Who's to blame for the energy crisis? Is it the current executives, as you mentioned, the CEO, the CFO and the COO, or is it the board? Who should actually take the fall for this? Or is it the Department of Public Enterprises or the President? I mean, there's so many questions here.
At the end of the day, the Department of Public Enterprises has got the ability to flip a switch, no pun intended there. They are the ones that have the ability to say this is the type of board that we need to have in mind, in place in order to be able to run this type of operations. It is the same department that has the veto power of the appointment of the executives. So if they feel that things are not working out, the question is why have they not flipped the switch to get us the type of people in the room who can do their job? So I think we need to shift the blame squarely at the hands of the department, because everyone else that we might be blaming are there at the behest of the department.
Okay, great. I don't think there is a switch to flip at this stage, but thank you so much for your time. That's independence analyst Kaya Sitole, and I think that paints a very clear picture, Masego, about the state of Eskom, but also who is going to be willing to sit on that Eskom board given the state of the power utility currently.
And I mean, Heidi, in all reality, if we look at it, it looks like this is going to be our lives in December, isn't it? 3 and 4 are supposed to be out by tomorrow, but I really doubt it. Maybe I'm one of those South Africans that have become despondent. Thank you, Heidi Giokos, live for us in Johannesburg.